Introduce myself. I'm Pat Whitlow. I'm the Director of Nationally Competitive Awards here at UK. Looking at some of the names on the screen, I know some of you, and some of you I don't. But hopefully if you're interested in nationally competitive awards and research awards, these things, you'll reach out to me and we'll talk about other opportunities as well. But today we're going to focus on the astronaut scholarship, and I'm going to talk a little bit about just the mechanics of the process and how you apply and deadlines. And then Skylar, who is our current astronaut scholar for UK, will talk a little bit about how he worked on his applications and you know, how he got the award. They had to move the ceremony online and some things like that. And then we'll both be very happy to answer any questions that you have. My colleague Emily Salih is also on the screen there, and she is helping me. She is advancing the PowerPoint for us because we're going to record this and have it available if you need to come back at another time to check a point for yourself, or if we have a student who could not make it this afternoon. So we'll move to our first information slide. And this, you know, is pretty much from their website, but you know, it's obviously important that they award $15,000, and that is an increase. I'm not sure if Skylar got that much. Had they made that change when you got the award, Skylar?
Yes, they did. They had made that specifically for us, I guess, COVID astronaut scholars.
Wonderful. Okay, so that is a change then that they're keeping. It used to be $10,000, so I think this is wonderful. So I know a lot of you, that is part of your interest, but I think there are also lots of other reasons to look at awards like this if you're interested in research and a career in research science. So you can see that you have to be in a STEM field, but it can be any STEM field. You do not have to be planning to be an astronaut. You do not have to be interested in aeronautics or avionics, or that is not Skylar's background. And so just being in a STEM program. I do want to be clear, they phrase this perhaps a little unusual, practice in professional medicine. You can't be planning to be a doctor or a dentist or a pharmacist. So any of the applied medical fields, they're interested in supporting research science and research scientists. And so they are not supporting people who want to get applied medical degrees. But as you can see, performing biomedical research would make you eligible. So a lot of you who are doing research in the College of Medicine and you want to, you know, investigate drug delivery, but you're not planning to be a pharmacist, right? Those kinds of things are eligible. So we'll move to the next. You have to be nominated, and this is one of the critical features of this award. You can choose to apply. You can't choose to be forwarded to the Astronaut Scholar Foundation unless you work through our office. And we can nominate 2 students each year. And we do. And we get an award every year. And we did have a fabulous year where we got both awards. And so that can happen, but it's very, very rare, and it depends on if they have an excess of funding or if a school doesn't nominate in that year. But we nominate 2 students. Generally, one of them will receive the award. And so, you know, you have to be a STEM major, a US citizen. That completing 2 years of full-time study at an ASF affiliated university, they generally are through the Southeast, but there's a list on their website, and they've added some additional universities in recent years. UK is one, obviously. So if you have been here for 2 years, then you're eligible. And you need to have good academic performance, a high GPA, probably above 3.7, I think is what they usually like to see applications from that level. And then when you look at that final bullet point, it used to be that they talked about research a lot more, and they seem to have expanded this to understand that many of you, you may be doing things beyond laboratory research. Skylar is on, are you on a co-op now, Skylar?
Yes.
Okay. So you may be doing a co-op. You may be in one of the fields where that's a very, very common training method. You may have an internship. As you can look at all of these different kinds of work within STEM fields or within your particular field are going to make you eligible for the astronaut. So maybe you don't think of yourself as research in the traditional sense that we do, but you may have other work that you're doing that is very, would make it feasible for you. Okay, so that is Skylar there. We have a picture of him and we also have him live. You would need to contact me. There is a pre-application form to fill out. So I have to have some information from you. There, you would want 2 letters of recommendation, and I will let Skylar talk about how he selected his recommenders. You do want them to be able to people who know you well and can speak specifically to your skill set, and probably not anyone from high school at this point. If you're applying for an award and you're going to be applying, you know, as a rising senior or a rising junior, you want to make sure that they're probably college faculty, or maybe a research mentor that you had at an REU in the summer, a research experience for undergraduates, or maybe your co-op supervisor. So it doesn't have to be a faculty, but it should be someone who knows you relatively recently and knows your work. The personal statement, I will let Skylar talk about this mostly, but then I will talk about it. It's kind of an odd beast for astronaut. They don't, it's a bit of a mix. It's not a research proposal, so you don't have to use a lot of jargon from your field. It's more geared to a general audience. And they also do have some interest in your career plans and your personal interests. And then you can see the other items there that they want to have. And so I think what we'll do is, Skylar, do you want to talk about your application and the way you put it together and any help that you received? And then we'll see, and then also the whole process of when you got the award and the things that have come to you since then.
Yeah, so as far as, you know, going through the application through UK, choosing my letters of recommendation, it was relatively easy for me because I had done an REU at UK in the summer of 19. And so I'm chemical engineering, and so Dr. Anderson and Dr. Hilt there in the chemical engineering department are both kind of co-leaders on the REU at UK for bioactive engineering, bioactive engineered interfaces and devices. There you go. It's quite a long name there, but they co-lead that. And so I got to work in Hilt's lab that summer, and I was also working with him throughout the school year as well. But then I got to kind of get a more personal connection with Dr. Anderson through that REU. So that was kind of the 2 people that was my go-to, because I did kind of put this together in short notice, because I didn't hear about it until pretty close to the deadline. I think at the time the deadline was about mid to late February, if I remember correctly. So y'all have a little bit more time than what I did. The personal statement. So I'd say this was probably my first time since, you know, applying to colleges that I'd had to put together a personal statement. So it was, I think Dr. Whitlow will probably remember this. The first one that I put together was not all that great, to say the least. And so I actually did a complete, I scrapped it and started a new one. So let me pull that up here so that I have it fresh and can kind of talk about it.
And while you're doing that, I'll just say it's certainly not uncommon for students to make revisions, and sometimes substantial ones. So that's part of getting better and having a better application.
Absolutely. I'm very glad I did, because the one that I made, I think came out a lot nicer than what the first one was. But I like a good theme. And so the theme that I had was, I'm a pretty spontaneous person. I definitely like to go on kind of an adventurer at heart. And so I kind of tied that theme into my research. And so I read the, kind of the first two lines here. So I'm an adventurer at heart, having traveled through 747 counties across 46 states and 5 countries. I'm no stranger to unknowns. I'm always willing to try new food, see new places, and meet new people. My academic life is no different. If you were to ask my friends and peers to describe me in a word, it would be ready. Always ready to take on the next challenge, the next project, the next last-minute task. Those around me know I'm willing and able to deliver what is required. I never hesitate, regardless of whether the details have been explicitly defined. And so then I go on, true to my adventuring spirit. I talk about my research that I did at Western Kentucky University before I came to UK using crystallographic techniques to study electronic structures of 2 anti-cancer drugs. And then kind of talk about some of my accomplishments with that research, some of the grants that I was a part of, some of the presentations I gave, and then talking about my research with Dr. Hilt here at UK, what we've been focusing on, which is primarily environmental remediation efforts with certain polymer compounds that we synthesize to capture perfluoroalkyl substances, or PFAS, and polychlorinated biphenyls, or PCBs. And so then that kind of tied right back into my RAU experience too, since I got to do that with Dr. Hilt. And then at the end, they want you to kind of talk about what you want to do post-graduation. Of course, this is for research. And so kind of like Dr. Whitlow said, not really a proposal per se, but kind of that you have a set goal and what you want to do as far as your research interests go. And so I tied in both of those research experiences, the one at WKU and the one at UK, and talked about combining my interest in pharmaceutics with nanomaterials and pursuing a project maybe functionalizing iron oxide or other inorganic metal nanoparticle surfaces as tools for targeted drug delivery. And so I talked a little bit about that field too. So the field has yet to see many large-scale applications in biopharmaceutics, but with an ever-growing focus on biologics in medicine that are tailored to the individual, targeted drug delivery systems are on the rise. And so I look for that field to branch out of academia pretty soon and into the pharmaceutical manufacturing practices in the coming decades. And, I talked at the end, I said, I hope to be along for that ride so that I can go on the next adventure and explore the unknowns that await with the money that would come with the astronaut scholarship. And so mine was a page. I don't think there was a word count maximum.
No, but they want a page.
They want 1 page. And so I wound up using, I think, either 10 or 11 point font to kind of fit everything on there that I wanted to talk about.
And how did you choose your recommenders then, Skylar?
So the recommenders, so Dr. Hilt, of course, I worked with in his lab for the first 2 years that I was at UK. Right now, I'm kind of on hiatus, being on co-op, but still coordinate with their lab quite a bit. So he knew me very well. I hadn't had him for any classes, but weekly meetings for research. He was my advisor for the RAU at UK, and knew me on both a personal and a professional level too. And then Dr. Anderson, I had her in class my first semester at UK, process principles for chemical engineering. And we really developed a very close relationship because we both come from very similar rural backgrounds. I interviewed her during one of my intro to engineering classes as part of a assignment that I have there. And it was through that I really got to know her and have relied on her for advice and help when, at all stages of my career at UK, and trying to figure out where I should go once I graduate. And so as far as the academics go that she could speak to, she's also a co-leader for the RAU at UK with Dr. Hilt. And so she was able to see that side of me during the summer of 19.
And also for the transcript, I would say, I think you just sent me an unofficial. So you guys don't have to worry about paying for a transcript. I can certify that your transcript is official. And then a copy of your CV. And I do not believe they limited that, but I wouldn't go more than 2 pages unless you have a lot of publications or a lot of research. Do you remember how long yours was?
So I think mine was, I wouldn't say it was quite a page and a half.
Okay.
But it was definitely over a page. And I never, I don't think that hurt anything.
No, I think it's okay. 1 or 2 pages, I think is fine, depending on your particular backgrounds. And one of the things I would say on the personal statement too, and I think that probably Skylar and I talked about this, is you want to talk about your research, but talk about it in a way that's broad, because this is unlike a National Science Foundation graduate research fellowship, which some of you may also be considering applying for as seniors. You're not going to necessarily have reviewers that are in your specialty area, or even possibly even in your degree area. So they will be, there will be people in STEM fields, of course, and also readers from the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation, but you want to write for, a broadly educated audience, so that it's not helpful to put in chemical formulas or something that people wouldn't know unless they're a specialist in your field. And then you also, as Skylar did, talking about his love of adventure, it is helpful to give them a glimpse, maybe into the kind of person you are, and kind of weaving that in to your personal statement as well. It's not the bulk of the personal statement. The bulk of the personal statement, I think, would be focused on your research or your work background and your future career plans. But they also like to know a little bit more about the scholars. And then do you want to talk about accepting the award, Skylar? We just learned today that Skylar had to record a video of himself. I didn't know that, but because of COVID, he wasn't able to go to DC to accept the award in person. As you can see, Angela Jones, fortunately, was able to be in DC to accept her award because that was pre the pandemic. Yeah, so
They sent us 2 care packages, is the best way to describe it. And the first one included that award that you see there in the picture on the slide. They have it all nicely framed and tells what school you're from and what year astronaut scholar class you're a part of. And of course, I think one of the most interesting things that I didn't have any idea about until after I'd already received the award is that they don't just give you the money and run away. They want to really build that lifelong friendship with all of their scholars. And in fact, I think most everyone that is involved with the board, I think at this point, was a former astronaut scholar. So I think a lot of them were in the late 90s to early 2000s now that are coming in and taking over some of those board positions. And they set me up with a mentor who was another former astronaut scholar to kind of talk about, what's the best way to go about applying to these graduate schools and finding those programs that would best suit my interests. Of course, the acceptance of the award itself was through Zoom. We made this I say it was through Zoom. It was actually through another meeting interface, but they had us all record a video. It could have been, we had 3 choices. It could have been a simple, thank you to the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation, or maybe a thanks to your university and the ones who recommended you. You could talk a little bit about your current research project, or you could talk a little bit more about your personal thank yous, I guess. So those 3 things. And so I kind of roped all 3 in there, but it had to be less than 45 seconds because of the number of astronaut scholars. And they definitely didn't want us to have too long of an awards ceremony, because it still took, I'd say, close to an hour and a half, if not 2 hours, to go through all 44 of those videos, plus all of the other guest speakers that they had at the time. But it was very nice. And of course, you could invite your parents with the link, or anybody that you wanted to come be a part of that. And then, of course, that whole week leading up to the awards ceremony was full of guest speakers. I know we had an actual astronaut come and talk to us. And of course, that was more of a technical talk, just about kind of some of his research that he was able to conduct while he was on the International Space Station, and some of the training that went on, to get to that point in his life, and kind of give us some career advice. And then we also had a kind of an industry night where we had 4 of the corporate sponsors of the ASF come in and talk about some of the opportunities that they had for researchers post dissertation and defense. And then we had some kind of like meet and greet kind of things where we could, get to know some of our other astronaut scholars and the class. And with that, we also had some alumni that would join too. And then, of course, the mentoring thing was set up through another web portal called Cronus, and they walk you through setting goals and developing that relationship. Now, it's assigned, so you don't get to choose who your mentor is, but mine has worked out very well, and I'm very pleased with it. But they definitely don't just turn you loose, and they have been they're very helpful. Anytime you need, say of course, during these times, we've had a LinkedIn group that was formed, and we've had some alumni coming in saying like, hey, we've got this opportunity here. If there are any astronauts or scholars who, might have been impacted by COVID in your internship, here's an opportunity for you. Things like that.
And I would echo Skylar in saying that this is one of the most important benefits that you get from being an astronaut scholar, because the $15,000 you will spend on research or living expenses or tuition, right? It will go to expenses for your education, and it's a wonderful benefit. I don't mean to say it's not, but it will be used up in a fairly short term. Whereas these relationships that you build, the opportunity to continue to participate with this group, the professional opportunities that could come your way, those kinds of things will be lifelong for you, or certainly the length of your career, but hopefully lifelong. And so I think always with many awards that it's these networks that are the true value of becoming an award recipient. So I hope that you will really pay attention to that. I have heard from other astronaut scholars what a benefit that's been to them in their careers as well. So I think why don't we do this? We can open it up for questions. I had suggested earlier you could put a question in the chat, and someone did, but we're not a huge group. So I think if you wanted to unmute yourself and ask your question, that would be fine as well. You don't even...
They also sent these snazzy polos too, so I had to.
We couldn't even okay.
Had to represent the organization today.
Wonderful. Oh, well, I didn't know. We should have had you model earlier. I didn't even realize that.
They sent books. They have a leadership class that they coordinate along with the book to kind of follow along with your reading. They had if you like coffee, they have a sponsor up in I think it's in Lafayette, Indiana, where Purdue is, that sent out a bag of coffee grounds to everybody.
Oh my goodness.
So, and an Etch-a-Sketch that's NASA edition. So lots of little cool things like that. Of course, we all got a mask as well from SAIC.
So it sounds like they are taking good care of you. And Skylar, I don't think you mentioned, do you want to give them just a brief summary of what you're doing on your co-op, what you were telling me before we went
yeah.
by?
So this is another interesting thing too. So they do require that you be a full-time student during the academic year that you receive the financial award. And so, of course, I took this co-op position in May of last year before I knew that I had won the award. So I was a little nervous for the first, month or so after I found out I received it as to whether or not I would still be eligible for it. But thankfully, UK, when you go on co-op, you're still enrolled as a full-time student, even though you have that one credit hour. And they only sent me one email asking for verification, and I told them that, like any other university where, an engineering program requires a co-op, we're full-time still. But I took this co-op, and that all worked out. But I'm out here in Western Kentucky in the coal fields out in the western part of the state, not eastern. So if you're familiar with Western Kentucky, you know where I'm talking about. But Alliance Coal, who has a pretty close relationship with UK, has lent us kind of some facilities here in Webster County. And Dr. Honecker with the Mining Engineering Department has kind of set up a research/pilot plant facility out here. And so we're currently working on modifying and improving an extraction process for rare earth metals that they have found in the coal refuse piles in the coal seams out here in the western part of Kentucky, as well as southern Illinois and southern Indiana.
That's great.
So we have a lab set up, and we also have a lot of larger scale equipment where we do pretty large scale batch processes. We're working on transitioning into a new phase now to where we can run continuously. So it's a lot of fun because I'm in the lab one day, and then the next day I'm actually going out and setting up equipment and to run it on a large scale. So I'm getting the whole experience is, from ground up out here.
Skylar, if a student has a question later and they wanted to email you, would you be okay with that?
Yeah, I would be perfectly fine with that. I can put my email in the chat.
That would be great. Thank you.
So it's pretty easy to remember. It's just my first name dot my last name at uky.edu. So that's my primary one that I use.
And I can also answer questions, of course. But if we don't have any just now, I think we'll let everyone go unless you have any other comments, Skylar, anything else you think people need to know?
I had a quick question.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you.
So currently I am a sophomore. I'm a second semester sophomore, and I'm currently on a co-op right now with GE, and then I'm doing another co-op this summer. So I'm trying to rack up my experience for this scholarship. But the thing is, I don't have plans of doing research at all. I just want to go and get my MBA. Would you still suggest I apply, or do you think 9 times out of 10 they're just going to go with somebody who wants to do actual research?
So you want to basically be in the business field. I mean, you want to work.
Yes.
Okay. I would say then that it's actually not a great fit for you, Jayla. And I hate to say that, but they are looking to support research scientists, and they're pretty clear about that in their mission. And so I'm sure that there are astronaut scholars that go on later in their careers and work in other capacities. But I think they are looking for people who, hope to pursue a career in research science. So I think they would be less interested probably.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I will say also, if you are applying as a rising junior, you can apply. If you don't get it, let's say you nominate this year, like Jayla said, let's say you were coming off your sophomore year, and so you're applying in the the spring sophomore year, and you were not selected as one of our nominees this year, then that gives you an opportunity to apply again the next year to be considered for the award. And we have had students do that and be nominated the second time and receive the award. So I would encourage you to, even if you're a sophomore and you think, well, maybe I don't have as much research experience as some others, or don't have as many co-ops, I would encourage you to try it anyway, because it's good to get the practice. It's good to start letting faculty know that you're interested in these types of awards. And we have nominated sophomores, so, but you also have another opportunity in that case. And I would also say, for those of you who are out there who might be interested in research science, if you might want to look at the Goldwater Scholarship. I know we have a couple of our applicants from this year listening. The window would have closed for this year, but if you're a sophomore, you could apply for that next year as well. For those of you who are planning graduate school in your field, you'll want to think about the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship, and you would apply for that in your senior year. You can also apply for it the first year of graduate school if you don't get it in your senior year. And that will fund your graduate studies or help you with that. And then, of course, there are lots of other opportunities that you may know about, summer research awards and other things that I hope that you will try to keep an eye on and put yourself out there for, because those things are just very, very useful in your overall career. And probably Skylar's having had an REU and having had that experience, that was probably very helpful and useful to him in being accepted as an astronaut scholar. So thank you all for coming today. I really appreciate it. It was nice to see a good turnout. And thank you so very much, Skylar. We really appreciate having the benefit of your expertise.
Well, thank you all for having me. I don't get to see too many of you all in Lexington, where I'm at now, so it's always good to have a chance to catch up. So
how's 2021 treating you?
2021 has been fine so far. Nothing out of the ordinary, except I'm now 1 shot down out of my 2 for the vaccine. So.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Well, you are lucky.
Yeah, one of the perks of being a UK employee out here. So
not for all of us.
We're waiting on the vaccine over here. The employees are, at least. So eventually.
Okay.
Hopefully we will all be vaccinated soon. And then we can see each other for some in-person information sessions.
Absolutely.
Thank you all so much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you, Skylar.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.